And two top DOJ officials, who are also former Trump defense attorneys, grilled under oath by lawmakers on Capitol Hill today. This is a big story in any era because you have top people under oath. It's a bigger story right now because, according to whistleblowers and critics, the DOJ under Trump is already facing Watergate-level scandals. Attorney General Pam Bondi, well known, at a Senate budget hearing. And then an individual who has become increasingly controversial, including after that FU whistleblower complaint that came out yesterday, Emil Bovee, we'll get into that, faced a nomination hearing because Trump is trying to promote his former criminal defense attorney here to become a powerful appeals court judge who would oversee and rule on what Trump does. This comes on the heels of that whistleblower complaint that a Justice Department leader, this very person up for the nomination here, being grilled today, was, as the Times put it, blatantly suggesting the DOJ do the opposite of its entire government role, that it violate court orders, or, as the individual put it, that it say F you to the courts. Indeed, the whistleblower, who is a very experienced long-term official who, it bears mentioning, as I leave this quote on the screen for you, is someone who served in the entire first Trump administration, defending all sorts of Trump policies, including the so-called Muslim ban or Middle Eastern ban. But this person, an insider, says they broke the rules and crossed the line when Bovee stated that the DOJ would need to consider telling the courts this year, quote, F you, ignoring any orders. Now, let's take that in. F you to the courts. F you to the judges. F you to our entire constitutional system. This dropped like a bombshell yesterday. You could see that in the New York Times. You could see it across our air. You could see it. It was Lawrence O'Donnell's lead story. It was our lead story because it is a huge deal. Now, this individual is credible and is putting this forward in writing at great risk, and they're doing it through the whistleblower process, which you might remember from the Trump impeachment or all the way back to Vietnam scandals. Whistleblowers have certain legal protections, but they also face great risk. This individual, Mr. Ravenny, put this all in writing with emails contemporaneous over 25 pages. It's an allegation. There were witnesses, he says, in the room, others who could corroborate this or not. And now this story is actually hitting Washington because some rules still matter, because nominees still have to go through a Senate vetting, because even the minority party, in this case the Senate Democrats, get time to put an individual under oath. And today we want to report, while this is a big allegation, this judicial nominee, this former Trump defense attorney, denies it under oath.
Senator, I have no recollection of saying anything of that kind. Well, I've certainly said things encouraging litigators at the department to fight hard for valid positions that we have to take. I have never advised a Department of Justice attorney to violate a court order.
The timing of it I find suspect. His hearing happens to be today, and I find the irony of the timing of it pretty remarkable. I also know my Deputy Attorney General, was in the room and said did not happen.
Those are the denials. And while we can get to the veracity of this, and we report the sourcing, we report when people deny things, and viewers, readers, citizens, you make up your own mind ultimately based on what you hear. But let's be clear. Everyone can see this is bad. This is a scandal. This isn't some situation where Donald Trump or his aides say, yeah, so what, we can do what we want. Pam Bondi was trying to lower the temperature on something that would be a scandal for her. Indeed, she even showed up at Bovee's hearing after her own, a type of solidarity with an individual who stands accused of the worst thing you could be accused of at the DOJ, which is trying to blow up our system of law and order of justice and courts. Now, the New York Times reports the whistleblower complaint continues to highlight tensions that have been roiling the Trump Justice Department for months, with these more nonpartisan career lawyers fearing that the department's political leaders chosen by Trump are systematically undermining integrity. Bovee was asked about this today, again under oath, and rejected these allegations that what he is doing, including allegedly going way over the line of what you're supposed to follow in court orders. The whistleblower complaint has other details as well about allegedly misdirecting or actively deceiving the courts about some of those flights that took off in a case they ultimately lost, lost the key round, about the return of that individual, Garcia. All of that is the context. This isn't exactly a strong suit for the administration, and he is defending and rejecting the idea that he does it all for Trump.
There is a wildly inaccurate caricature of me in the mainstream media. I am not anybody's henchman. I'm not an enforcer. I'm a lawyer from a small town who never expected to be in an arena like this.
Small town lawyer, maybe even a country lawyer, as the saying goes. You'll notice this old trope of going after the press or the messenger. Let's be very clear. While there has been press coverage scrutinizing all this, and that's common if you think back to other administrations, the DOJ is one of those agencies that gets covered a lot more than, say, agriculture. But the press covering the facts is not a press thing. The press covering what someone who served through the entire first Trump term defending those policies is not a press thing. The whistleblower defended the so-called Muslim or Middle East ban. The other accounts are coming from inside the government. The people who resigned over the alleged misconduct in a deal struck with the New York mayor, allegedly Trump officials had the whistle blown on that case, those were longtime conservative lawyers. So, while the nominee is free to testify and give his views, he can't accurately say this is some press thing. The problem is coming from inside the DOJ, from some pretty credible accounts of what's been happening. Then there was a question about asking about foreign interests in Donald Trump's very controversial, self-enriching meme coin and cryptocurrency.
It is wildly offensive that you would accuse President Trump of not protecting American interest in our country. You're trying to play a gotcha question with the President of the United States, and it's not going to work.
So it was a contentious day. Senator Booker also discussed these issues, addressing his colleagues, and warned about what it would mean, given what is known. Remember, there are plenty of qualified lawyers who don't get to be top federal judges, who rule on matters of life and death, of capital punishment, of war and peace. It's fine to say that someone did political work or other types of work and that maybe they're not going to be a perfectly independent, impartial judge, which is what the vetting is for, in addition to their professional acumen. Well, Senator Booker said to elevate this man, given what's already known, think about what that means, a lifetime appointment like this.
There is no scenario under which the White House counsel could believe that this nomination would be acceptable. Moreover, Mr. Beauvai's record makes clear that he has no business serving a lifetime on the federal bench.
We're joined by a former federal prosecutor who's also been counselor to exactly the kind of congressional committees we just saw there, John Flannery, and New York Times Magazine staff writer Emily Bazelon. Emily, I hope Mr. Beauvais wasn't talking about your publication or our outlet, mouthful. But he seemed to want to distract away from the core issue that is relevant and substantive in his hearing, which is whether he has the requisite independence and what the people who've worked most closely with him most recently say about whether he is an honest protector of the rule of law or not. I'm curious how you see it.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think the question here is who to believe about what happened behind the scenes. This whistleblower report is, an astonishing account of these insider moments, and it's coming from someone who was a longtime career lawyer in the Department of Justice. That means he's not a political appointee. He takes pains to explain that he had implemented the policies of former presidents and of this president. He had actually just been promoted for his work on immigration enforcement. And so he is claiming to come from this perspective where he's defending the rule of law and all of the norms of the Justice Department that say that the government follows court orders. The government tells the truth in court. And so that's his stance here. And of course, then we have this denial from Emile Beauvais, and it's up to you who to believe. They have very different accounts, but the account is coming from inside the House. It is not something that the press spun up on its own.
John?
Well, Emily has in the past concentrated on bullies, and this is just an example of the lieutenants of Trump doing that, because this whole incident comes from our boy who wants to go on the Third Circuit telling people this is what they have to do. He calls it encouraging, but he uses the F-bomb, tells them they'll lose their jobs and so forth. The exchange with Schiff was particularly useful because he did, that is, Beauvais did this interesting thing about I don't recall, which is a tell for most of us that we should examine, was that a real failure of recollection? He failed to recall that there was the F-bomb. But Schiff, who has experience as a questioner, former prosecutor, he zeroed in and pushed away the things that Beauvais tried to distract him from. And one of the best ones was the meeting. One of the meetings occurs on March the 14th. On March the 14th, that's when Beauvais says those planes have got to go and it's going to happen, and a whole variety of other things. Then the next day, March the 15th, the judge asks one of the representatives from the Department of Justice, are these planes going? Are there anybody getting on planes going away? Not that I know of. It was a lie. And the significance of that is when he was asked that by Schiff, he says, I don't know when the dates were. I don't think there was an order at the time. And to show how precisely Beauvais was thinking, remember that the explanation for not violating the order was that they could have gotten the 100 Venezuelans off the plane in El Salvador before the judge's order was posted. Talk about Philadelphia lawyering. This deception will be shown to be, I think, rampant when they look at the emails and talk to the other witnesses and so forth. If the Republicans stand by him, then the cancer that has affected our government is owned by the Republicans.